Hi, welcome to Melissa's Money Mindset. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining. My name is Melissa, and I have dedicated this entire YouTube channel to all things money related, from selling items online to buying real estate, investing, improving your credit score, and other general ways to increase and diversify your income. So today, as a seasoned e-commerce and print-on-demand seller of more than 7 years, I wanted to talk about the highly controversial topic of whether or not I think it's even worth it for a complete beginner to start a print-on-demand business today. But before we get into my thoughts, if you could please do me a huge favor and like this video, subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you never miss another money-making tip. Let's get right into it. Now, I wanted to establish what print-on-demand actually is before we jump into the controversial topics of whether or not it's worth it for a beginner to try out this money-making method. So if you've never heard of POD or print-on-demand products, that basically means that you create a design file or you hire someone from, say, Fiverr or Upwork to create a design file for you. You then upload that design file, let's say, to Amazon. And then once somebody orders that item off of the Amazon website, Amazon will fulfill that order, they will ship it to the customer, and they will handle all of the customer support for you. Basically meaning that you just collect a royalty check at the end of every month. Now, this is really appealing to e-commerce sellers because it means that you don't have to hold thousands and thousands of dollars of inventory, and you don't need to own a printer. Amazon does all of the work for you. So now that we've established what print-on-demand is, I actually wanted to talk about a comment that I received on a recent video that kind of prompted me to start thinking about this entire idea of whether or not I think it's actually worth it for complete beginners to start a print-on-demand business now, as of 2024. So let's take a look at the comment that prompted this video. So this comment is from Jojo Rocks 23. So thank you so much, Jojo Rocks, for watching my previous video. So they said, interesting tutorial, thank you. So I pay for Sale Samurai and Creative Fabrica, I hire a VA, and I pay for Canva if I want decent designs. I pay for Etsy and maybe ads, and then I charge less than $3 for my PNG that I hope will sell and not be ripped off, ? I can see this working on an established site with other products that is 4 years old, as you showed, but for a beginner, would you agree that this is not feasible? With over 200 PNGs, I can't see making money on these products, but losing. Maybe I'm missing something here. Can you clarify? Thank you. Now, I can 100% relate to this comment, especially in the very beginning and nowadays when it seems like the e-commerce market is undoubtedly more saturated than it's ever been. I completely understand why people might give this a second thought and consider whether or not starting a print-on-demand business today, as of 2024, is even worth it at all. And I'll be honest that I have those same thoughts too. I recently started a new business venture on display, which I talked about in another video, and I had to think long and hard about whether that was even worth my time. Because again, time is a valuable asset and something that you can't get back. So you have to invest it, especially when you're a business owner and you have limited time, very wisely. So since this comment made me stop and think about my own business journey, I thought it might be kind of fun to try and make a list of 10 legitimate ideas related to this topic and also talk about some potential mindset shifts that need to occur when you're transitioning into self-employment or when you're considering starting a new business venture. Now, when you're first starting out, I would advise following the traffic. If you've done a quick Google search for e-commerce platforms, I'm sure you found hundreds of them, but how do you know which one is actually worth your time? Now, I personally would focus mainly on Amazon and maybe on Etsy as well. That's where most of the traffic is, and so you want to follow the traffic. Basically, the more traffic a site gets, the more eyeballs could potentially be on your product, meaning the more sales that you could make and the more money you're going to make from those sales. So since Amazon is essentially the gold standard here, I wanted to share some kind of fun Amazon stats with you. Now, according to an article that I found on Jungle Scout, Amazon towers over other online marketplaces by accounting for 37.6% of the entire US e-commerce market. That's more than Walmart, Apple, eBay, and Target combined. And then brace yourself because Amazon's average daily sales revenue is $1.6 billion. So people are definitely out there spending money, which is hopeful for new print-on-demand businesses. And actually, 56% of consumers start their product search on Amazon, which beats out the Google search results, Walmart, YouTube, and Facebook. And this is the part that I really wanted to hone in on. So if you're considering opening your own print-on-demand e-commerce business, listen up here. More than 68% of Amazon sales come from independent or third-party sellers. That's you and I. So that's pretty incredible, actually. And to further support starting an Amazon-based business, studies have found that 58% of Amazon sellers are profitable within the first year, and 19% of those small business sellers have surpassed $10,000 a month in average monthly sales. So those are all incredible statistics and arguably very much in support of starting a print-on-demand business, even now, even in 2024. So all in all, based on this first point, my opinion is to definitely give these larger marketplaces a try. And since they're print-on-demand offerings and you don't have to hold any inventory, you don't have to run ads if you don't want to, there's essentially zero risk. Literally the worst thing that could happen is you spend money making a design or having a design made. I usually pay between $5 and $7 per design. You put it up and maybe it doesn't sell, so you're out $5. But it's a learning process. And as you can see, there's tons of potential. My second point here is about research and the value of your time. This is probably the most important thing you'll take from this video and probably the hardest lesson for me to learn as a business owner. Your time is valuable and it's also a non-renewable resource, so learn to use it wisely. I like to tell the story of when my husband and I purchased our first home, and it was built in the 1970s, so it had this crazy texture on the walls. So we apparently had been watching way too much HGTV, and we looked up how to skim coat the walls, which is just a technique where you take some plaster and you can smooth the walls out. Now, it takes quite a long time to master this technique, but for some reason we thought, let's give it a try. At that point, we didn't want to pay anybody else to do it. So we spent every single weekend for an entire year skim coating and sanding every walled surface of our home. And then a few years later, when we had saved enough money to finally fully renovate that house, we hired a general contractor who walked in and said, "You guys look like you need some help with your walls. Do you want my team to take a look at it?" So of course we said yes. We wanted it to look nice after the full renovation. And the amount of humbling that we experienced in a single day when his team of 12 men came in and skim coated and sanded our entire home in a 12-hour period, and it looked like perfection, was incredible. Now, we can draw a parallel here between home renovation and a print-on-demand business. So if you're slapping up designs without doing any market research, I will flat out tell you, you're wasting your time. You need to be running your business on data, not running a side hustle on a hope and a prayer. I honestly don't have time for that. If you've seen my most recent video, I have more than 10 businesses that I'm running currently and a real estate development company. So what I'm doing and what I'm dedicating my time to needs to be really precise and efficient. So in order to be the most efficient here, we basically need to figure out where the demand in the market lies. And so once we figure out where that demand is, you can then make designs that will meet that demand and therefore be more likely to sell. And that leads me into my third point here, which is subscription central. There are so many softwares and offerings out there. It can be mind-boggling and really hard to choose which is worth your money. Now, the commenter here had said that they were paying for Sale Samurai, Creative Fabrica, and Canva. So when you're just starting out, I would honestly recommend picking just one or two. Those expenses can definitely add up, especially in the beginning when you're likely not making very much money. So my best advice here is to find a tool that can do both research and design. Now, if you look back through some of my YouTube videos, you'll see that I've reviewed quite a number of software tools. I will say that Merch Informer is made specifically for Amazon Merch on Demand sellers, and then BookBolt is made specifically for Amazon KDP sellers, and they both have a research section and a design section. So I would definitely look into those. But again, I would stick with one or two of these just to start out with so that you aren't breaking the bank. So my fourth point is scaling your business. So the commenter had said that selling a PNG for $3 isn't worth it because they wouldn't be profitable essentially after paying for all of their subscriptions. And yes, I totally agree with that. If you are paying for all of these monthly subscriptions and you are making one design and you have one design that you are selling as a PNG file, the likelihood of you being able to cover all of your subscription expenses with just that single PNG design is basically slim to none. However, the entire point of an e-commerce business is to scale your business. So I've been working on building my e-commerce business for the past 7 years. So basically, I started in the exact same way. I opted to hire someone from Upwork. And so I have a few designers that work for me now that are constantly pumping out e-com designs for me. And I have a repertoire of a few 100,000 designs. And so the act of scaling an e-commerce business is actually what makes it so desirable and so feasible. So get yourself a design and research tool that you really enjoy using, become really familiar with it, and then maybe just aim for something realistic. If you have a full-time job, if you have kids, if you're busy in life, that's totally fine, but maybe aim to just make one PNG design a day. So that's roughly 30 designs a month. And then even just uploading that to Merch on Demand, you can upload 70 products total. That's including all the products for the US market and then all of the other markets across the entire globe. You can then take that same design and you can sell it on Seller Central. I use Printful to fulfill all of my Seller Central designs, and Printful, I believe, has almost 400 products themselves. You can then list it on Redbubble, TeePublic, Teespring, literally make a list of all of the non-exclusive platforms and upload that design there. That's thousands of listings that you can essentially have created per month. Now, this will take some time and it is hard work, but guess what? If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So just stick with it, be consistent, and you'll eventually get there. Now, this leads me into my next point, which is hiring a VA. Now, most days, I wish there were about 15 of me because I feel like my head is just spinning constantly. There's always new things to be doing. If you are a business owner, you know that there are always fires to put out. There's always new ventures to consider. And then there's just managing what you have in front of you. And this is where a VA or a virtual assistant can be a godsend. Now, a word for a moment here, because some platforms are not a huge fan of VAs. For example, Etsy can be sticklers about VAs. So if you are using a VA on Etsy, you need to be sure that you are disclosing that you are using one in your About Me section. Now, I have my VA upload some designs to my Etsy stores via Sales Samurai. They have a really nice area in their software that allows VAs to do that, but I never have a VA log in to any of my Amazon accounts. So if you plan on doing that, I would highly recommend looking into that before you grant anybody else access. So basically, my VA helps me with titling and keywording so that when I get a new batch of designs, those go right to my VA. They will do all of the market research for me to figure out the best keywords, titles, and descriptions for those. They then make a spreadsheet for me. All I have to do when I'm uploading the designs myself to the Amazon platform is literally upload the PNG file and then copy paste all of the information that my VA has already input for me into the spreadsheet. Now, again, if you sell on Etsy, I highly recommend having your VA upload to your Etsy stores via the backend of Sales Samurai. I actually made an entire video dedicated to this, and I will link that up above here. This has been such a time saver for me. Now, mine also helps me manage some blog content. They're helping me get some software ideas off the ground, and I'm going to see if she can help me with some real estate administrative work. But really, the purpose of me saying that is to just think outside the box about how your VA can help you. I think this is kind of a crippling point for some self-employed business owners. They feel like they need to micromanage and have their hands in everything. And sometimes, as long as you train your VA well and they know what they're doing, it's okay to let go a little bit because you're needed elsewhere. So to continue growing your business, you need to step back from some of the more minuscule day-to-day tasks and just let somebody else handle those things. And that's totally fine. And again, I didn't have a VA until just a few years ago. And I completely understand what a luxury and a privilege it is to be able to afford a VA. Now, for the first 4 or 5 years of my e-commerce career, I was the one that built my business from the ground up. So as you know, I was in nursing school at the time, and I would go to school. I would go to clinical hours. Those things combined would probably take 12 to 15 hours per day. I would come home. My husband would have dinner ready for me. I would be cramming for an exam. And then before I went to bed, I would make sure I uploaded at least a few designs to the Merch on Demand platform. So I'm not saying this is going to be a great time. I'm not saying this is going to be easy, But if you are dedicated and you want to have an e-commerce print on demand business as a side hustle, as a little bit of extra money, or you're trying to retire yourself from your current day job and you want to build this as an actual business for the future, there probably are some sacrifices that need to be made, and you'll just need to kind of work on your time management. Now, the next topic is fees and ads. Now, I completely agree. It's pretty crappy that you have to pay fees, but that's kind of the price that you have to pay to have access to such a large audience. So just Amazon's audience is millions and millions of people. And so to have my items listed on those websites, in my eyes, is worth it. So let's talk about the fees and the royalty share for these two main options. Now, Amazon pays a royalty to the sellers. I mentioned you get paid on a monthly basis, and this royalty share is largely determined by the price of your items. So for example, if you're listing a new item and you're pricing it at $14.99, your royalty share will probably be somewhere between 10 and 14%, meaning that Amazon will keep roughly 85 to 90% of the profit to cover things like the cost of t-shirts, the cost of labor to have somebody pick your product, print it, and ship it, and the cost to pay someone to do customer service on all of your orders. Now, if you're pricing your items a little bit higher, let's say $19.99, all of my best sellers are priced at $19.99, the royalty per shirt is about $5. That means if all of your shirts are priced that high, your royalty share will probably be somewhere closer to 20 to 25%, meaning that Amazon is keeping roughly 75% and you're getting 25% at the end of every month. Now, Etsy has a little bit more of a structured fee setup, so let's take a look at that. So they can occasionally charge a setup fee if you're opening a new store, and then they do charge a 20-cent listing fee for each new item that you're listing for sale. In addition, they also charge you a 6.5% transaction fee on all sales. Now, in addition to these fees, you also, of course, have the option to run ads, which ads can be very beneficial. I love running Amazon ads. That has really helped me grow my Amazon business. If you have watched my recent video, you know that I'm not a fan of Etsy ads. They've never been helpful for me. I will turn them on for the holiday season and Q4, but really generally throughout the rest of the year, they are not a good use of money for me and my business. So make sure that you are taking the Amazon ads course, especially if you're running Amazon ads, because if you don't pay attention and you don't know how to set up ads, you can very, very quickly spend a large sum of money. So just be careful. And then also just take the time to test out ads and see if it's worth your money at all. Now, if you really don't want to pay any fees, by all means, you are welcome to build your own website, and then you can just drive your own traffic to your website. I personally don't have millions and millions of followers, so I would have to pay to run ads and to drive traffic to my website. So again, there is always an expense, but it's just kind of a balancing act. Again, do what works best for you and what you're most comfortable with. And so all this fee talk brings me into my seventh point, which is basically comparing an e-commerce business to a brick and mortar business. So I hear so many comments online basically complaining about the price of starting an e-commerce business, that Etsy and Amazon are taking so much cut of the profit. But I wanted to actually break this down for you to show you that the opportunity that you are afforded via these print-on-demand e-commerce businesses are amazing. Don't take them for granted. So let's talk about this comparison for a second. So in e-commerce, there's basically little to no startup cost. I didn't have to pay anything to start my Etsy store. I didn't pay anything to start my Amazon merch on demand store. And then basically you can decide if you want to pay someone to make designs for you. I pay my designer between $4 and $6 per individual PNG file. Or like I said, you can sign up for a software like Merch Informer. I also forgot to mention before that you can get 20% off your Merch Informer subscription by using my code MMM20. So I will have that down below in the description box. So let's contrast that to a brick and mortar business. So I'm assuming that most brick and mortar businesses are renting the space. They don't own the building. So let's say I live in the state of Colorado, and most brick and mortars rent their space for anywhere between $3,000 and $7,000 per month, some even more than that, depending on what kind of location you want. Now, in addition to those many thousands of dollars, you also have to pay utilities because you need to have the lights on, you need heat and air conditioning. You also now need to pay employees. If it's not just you, you need to pay employees. Now you're potentially offering benefits to those employees. And you also need to have insurance on your space and on your inventory. You also need to buy inventory and hold inventory. So you have the potential risk of your inventory not selling. So all of that to say, when I hear people essentially complaining that Etsy and Amazon take too much cut, go ahead and start a brick and mortar business. You're more than welcome and nobody's stopping you. But that's going to cost you way more money, especially upfront, than just paying $4 for a PNG design or paying $9.99 a month for Merchant Former. So I guess you have to pick your battles. And if the fees are so off-putting to you that you don't want to start a print-on-demand business at all, then that's your choice. But instead of complaining about it, I would look at it as an amazing opportunity. You have an audience of millions of people that you essentially have to pay a portion of your royalty for. So in my book, I will continue to do that. I am thankful for the opportunity and I'm going to take advantage of it. My 8th point here, and a follow-up comment from Jojo Rocks, who made the initial comment, was what products should we start with? And I honestly would just focus on having a PNG file created. So once you have a PNG file, I would recommend making it in 4,500 pixels by 5,400 pixels because that's kind of a universal dimension. Then you can take that PNG file, you can sell it as just a PNG file on Etsy, like I showed in my previous video. You can upload it to Merch on Demand, and Merch on Demand will automatically resize it to fit all 70 of their products. I will show you here. So Merch on Demand can offer standard t-shirts, premium t-shirts, long sleeves, tank tops, raglans, any kind of hoodie or zip hoodie that you'd like, phone cases, tote bags, pillows, and they also just added to-go coffee mugs. So that's 70 items right there that you can list your PNG for sale on. And then if you're selling on Amazon Seller Central or on Etsy and you need a third-party fulfillment company, I love Printful. They've worked really well for me. I know there's a few other really good companies that some of my friends have liked. So if you have any recommendations, feel free to leave those down below. But the Printful catalog is almost 400 products. So again, if you take that PNG and you list it across those 400 items and you list it on Seller Central or Etsy, the opportunities really are endless. And that's before we even get to any of the other non-exclusive e-commerce print-on-demand websites. So my advice again, start with just a PNG and honestly, just start designing. My 9th point here is don't expect sales to be linear. Now, I want to be clear here and set some expectations. So if you upload a single design or even a few hundred designs, I would realistically expect a fairly slow and gradual start, especially when you're under your first few thousand designs. So be consistent, and then soon you'll probably be making $100 a month, and then a few $100s a month, maybe 6 months down the road, and then maybe you'll hit $1,000 a month. And then if you want to continue, you do have the option to be part of that 19% of Amazon third-party sellers that makes over $10,000 per month consistently. However, it's also important to point out that sales are not linear. Sales are actually cyclical throughout the year. So right now we are in Q4. We saw sales starting to increase in September, and they will continue to do so through December. And then in January, you'll see a dramatic decrease. Those are my worst months of the year, are January and February, because people just spent all their money during the holiday season buying all their presents. So they don't have any more money to spend. Now they're going to save for January and February. Sales are very slow during that time. And then you should see a gradual increase throughout the rest of the year. Granted, there are some holidays. So if you can hop on the holiday train, I highly recommend you doing that. So make sure that you're marking those days on the calendar. Let's say Valentine's Day, St. Patty's Day, 4th of July. I'm sure I'm missing a few, but all of those major holidays, if you can put those designs up a few months ahead of time so that they have time to gain traction and get some reviews, then you can make a good portion of your money just off of holidays throughout the year as well. Now, my final idea here is to niche down. So to put things in perspective for you, the global print-on-demand market was valued at around $5.4 billion in 2022, and it's expected to reach $39 billion by 2031. So there's definitely room for people to capitalize on this form of e-commerce sales. Now, I say this because I hear over and over and over again, I'm not starting a print-on-demand business. It's too saturated. And yeah, it's gotten more saturated, obviously, as people have figured out that the demand is there. However, based on the stat that I just gave you, there's obviously ample room for growth. So it's on you and I to try to find these unsaturated niches. Some of my best designs are actually focused on really small subsets of niches. Think plumbers, electricians, bowling, dinosaurs, little things like that, where you can really make the designs your own. You can come up with funny sayings. You can really customize the graphic that you're using and make it specific to your target audience. Now, once you've found your smaller niche, it's much easier for your item to stand out in a less saturated market. And honestly, my approach is, yeah, I'll compete with other people all day long, but you know what I'd like even more? Competing with myself, because either way, I'm winning. So if I find a niche that has worked really well for me, I'll put up 50 designs in that smaller niche because then I'm just competing with myself. Now, I've done an entire video on finding low competition print-on-demand niches, so I will link that up above here, and I'll also put it in the description box down below, but I hope that's been helpful for you. So that brings me to my question of the day, which is it even worth someone's time? And is it even possible for somebody to start a successful e-commerce print-on-demand business today? And to that, I'll say, are you still buying things online? And when was your last Amazon purchase? Because mine was this morning. So based on the Amazon stat that their daily sales revenue is $1.6 billion, I would say that's a resounding yes to people continuing to buy things online. So as we've established, yes, the market is likely more saturated than it was 7 years ago. However, that's why I always harp on doing market research and why I spend so much time on this YouTube channel showing you how to do that. So make sure that you find a tool that you enjoy using. You need to be doing market research to find demand. As we said, you also need to be optimizing your listings. And I also have another video showing you how to do that. You can also be running ads, which again, there's an entire educational platform posted by Amazon that shows you how to run Amazon ads and get more traffic to your products. And again, I also want to emphasize that you need to learn how to evolve with the times. Yes, the e-commerce space is always changing, but so is everything else in life. And if you don't change with it, you're going to get left behind. So that can mean learning how to utilize AI tools like Midjourney, ChatGPT, and Ideogram. And these can all help make your designs even more unique so that they stand out from the crowd. However, it's honestly been my opinion that if you do your market research, you follow the demand, you keyword your listing well, and you run appropriate ads, you will beat out your competition most of the time. Now, I've been an e-commerce seller for more than 7 years, and I work on this stuff all day long, so I could also talk about this stuff all day long. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to leave things here. If you want me to make a part 2, or if you have any specific questions, drop those down below, and I'm more than happy to answer those or to make another video if you need additional clarification. Now, as always, feel free to follow me on my social channels right here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.